All right, everyone, welcome to Sister Science Stories today. Here is where we explore our sacred mind body spirit connection. We often use the wisdom of Ayurveda and yoga, and today we're going to be diving into a fascinating conversation of how we intersect with astrology. Sandy Mulroy is here of Solar Power Health. Now, Sandy is a professional psychological astrologer, and she weaves astrology and the gene keys into individuals to help them uncover their gifts, similar to how I would use Ayurveda. Sandy's always leading nature retreats. She's all over the globe, infusing yoga and herbology and sacred circles into how she practices her astrology. And with the same goals as me of fostering that deep connection in people and that self-acceptance. So, in this episode, you guys, I can't wait. We're going to explore how each of these modalities, sister sciences, Ayurveda, and astrology, complement each other. We want to find the intersection of how their natural rhythms and energetic alignments and intuitive wisdom sort of like dovetail together. I'm also so curious about how Sandy can show us how planetary movements influence our well-being, and we're going to talk about how Ayurvedic practices can come in to support us during astrological shifts. So, do you like this sentence? Get ready for an illuminating conversation about how cosmic and earthly wisdom can empower us to navigate our lives. And with that, Miss Sandy, I want to ask you, how did you figure out that astrology and Ayurveda were connected?
Wow. I went
That
to
was a
this.
big intro.
That was an incredible intro. um, so I actually made the connection between the two from your workshop that I went to at the yurt. I've been a psychological astrologer I've been interested in astrology since I was 15. And the interesting thing is when you look at psychological astrology, you're actually not looking at the transits and what the planets are currently doing. You're looking at each person's unique birth and
Mm.
that program they entered in. And so when I was at your workshop, you were teaching us a lot about how the doshas are symptoms, but everything has a dosha, right? Everything. And within that, each dosha is made up of elements. And that's all astrology is. Astrology is the seasons and the elements. So we have three modes, just like there are three tejas, three doshas. And we don't have five elements, but we have four elements. And each person is a blend of that. And so when I started taking that workshop with you and understanding Ayurveda, I work with medical astrology as well. It's kind of all of it intertwines because you can't be healthy if you're not working with the
Yeah.
physical, the emotional, and spiritual. But I just realized like they're same but different language or similar. There's obvious differences. Ayurvedic is a type of medicine, but astrology can be used as a deeper study. And when you understand yourself, you know what the medicines are. So it was very intriguing. The whole workshop, I was hanging on every word you were saying, but there was this other little voice in there going like, Sandy, like,
Is it?
this is the same.
Okay, so can you help me then? You tell me the astrology's three modes, and let's share how they are also in Ayurveda. So what are the three modes of astrology?
So the three modes in astrology all have to do with the seasons. We have the archetypes that bring in a season. For example, today we're moving into Aries season. Aries brings in the spring. So every equinox and solstice is either Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn. And we call that modality cardinal. So a cardinal modality is much like the Pitta type. They're go-getters. They start, they move, they can't sit still. Things have to get done. And their energy as they bring in the season is, we can't wait, we're doing it. So they're very active.
Would you say these are your fire signs?
Nope,
No,
they're modes, so they're
they're
not
modes.
elements.
Okay, so this is different. They're
Yes.
modes.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
So they're
it's
your
actually one of each element. So Cancer is
Oh.
water, Capricorn is earth, Aries is fire, and Libra's air. So one of each element is a mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
They fit together and but they embody the doshas of a pitta, which is in Ayurveda terms, this is our fire people. This is the
Yes.
people who have that go-getter, that drive, that passion, that there's something, a spark in them. You can use
Yes.
the words around fire to say they get a little hot under the
Yes.
collar. They get a little, they can
Yeah,
burn people with their
exactly.
words when they're out of balance. Okay.
Yes, very much like any cardinal energy, or we will go into the elements too, because they're
Okay.
same but different.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
astrology, it's yin and yang, modes, and elements that make us up.
Okay.
So yeah, so cardinal, bring in the season. They are the beginnings. And then we have our, what I compare to kapha, is the fixed signs. So the fixed modality is our Taurus, our Leo, our Scorpio, and our Aquarius. So one of each of the elements represents this mode, which is we're holding this season here. So
Mm.
what needs to happen is going to happen. These are more of the organizers. These are more of we're the real retailers, I guess you could say. Like we need time. We need this to stay consistent for a while so we can do what the season's meant to do.
So
So
that in Kapha, the Kapha people in our world are the ones who have a lot of stability. They have a lot of routine. They have a lot of consistency, and
mm,
they have a lot of just like ability to continue to move slow and steady.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And if you look at a lot of the fixed signs, like take Taurus, for example, even their constitution is very kapha, right? Like
Mm.
so there is similarities. Again, there's difference because that all of the elements can be a mode, but just like we have all of the elements
Yeah.
in us, it's the program. How much do you have of each?
Yes.
And then
Okay.
our third mode would be what I would say is similar to Vata, and that is the mutable mode. So mutable signs let the season go. They are not committed. They're very kind of they're adaptable, right? Like they're not meant to see something through. They're not go starters either. They're let's let this be. Let's be free. So we have our Sagittarius, our Gemini, our Virgo, our Pisces. These are more let's let the season go.
Wow. And the way you're using the word mutable, like one of the biggest things about a Vata sign is the variability of it. It's almost like these are the ones that sort of you can't peg them down. They
Yes.
are too interested in too many things to sort of get stuck in a routine. They're the ones that most avoid routine. And yeah, there's an airiness, a lightness to the way they move in and out of the world because everything has got that, yeah, they don't need to hold on to grasp. So the way you said they can let go, they can be adaptable. Very,
Yes.
very true about that Vata sign.
Yes, and even if you look at it, like take you, for example, Gemini, like Gemini is a logical, detail-oriented sign. So a lot of people would say, well, how is that Vata? But they're the shapeshifters. They can become anybody in any conversation. They're flexible. So that's how I think of mutable signs is it's not wishy-washy. It's that you know, um, it's that they can fuse or release.
And there's always space in that sign for something new to come in and something old to be released. And so
Mhm.
that sign or that mode in Ayurveda, we would call it, there's inspiration, there's creativity, there's sort of that ability to sort of bring in that newness. You're
Yeah.
talking about letting go of stuff, but yeah, I think of it
But
also as You have to let go in order to have the space for the new thing to come in.
Yes, to me, what you just said, the words that I associate with mutable is creative.
Creative, yeah, very.
A lot
Yeah.
of these personality types that are strong, mutable, are going to be more of the artistic mind, and the be able, the be inventive, the creative, the innovative kind of souls. They all work together because we all have those three modes in our chart, but some people can be very dominant on one. Just like when you did the dosha test in your workshop and we
Yeah.
found out our percentages. So you can do the same thing with the modes in astrology. What is your percentage of fixed, cardinal, or mutable?
So
And
you would say for me, based on me being a Gemini, I have a mutable mode.
no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I would not. So I would look at your chart and I'd look at where all the planets are. And if the majority of the planets, because we have 12 planets we look at, even though the sun and the moon are not technically planets.
Okay.
So if you have four or more planets in mutable, I would say you're mutable dominant.
Okay. So here's a place that I get really interested in that when I am looking at someone Ayurvedically, I can use their body type as something that gives me an indication of if they are Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. I can use how I see them communicating in the world to see, or even sort of what, yeah, like how they are interacting with the world, the way they speak, the way they present themselves, like how extroverted or introverted they are, how loud they are, how much they use their hands, like all these little signs I can use to help me um, sort of put them into these categories. Whereas you go to their natal chart and the answers are sitting there plain as day for you. Whereas I feel like Ayurveda, the answers are still a little bit up for discussion. It's almost like we're looking for the ability to sort of like pin you down and say you are Vata, you are Pitta, you are Kapha. Whereas you can go type in numbers, find the chart, thanks to modern technology, actually pull up how this person is.
I would say yes. I mean, in a lot of ways, yes. The answer is I can look and see what is the running program. We always look at what are their dominant modes and then the elements. And usually they coincide.
Okay.
And
Can
then
you
you
do the
can
elements
get,
with me? Can you do the elements with me just for like
yeah, yeah,
see how they
absolutely.
match? Because I have a million questions, but
Yeah. And if I
let's do
remember
the elements
correctly,
first.
like Pitta is fire
Yeah.
and
And
which
water, but it's mostly
yeah.
fire.
I love that because if you look at so let's do the elements and we'll tie
Okay.
it in. So in the elements in astrology, we only have fire, air, and water and earth,
Yeah.
even though there are some signs that we could classify as other.
Okay.
But for the most part, so fire signs are going to be again more like that Pitta personality. They're action oriented. They generally want to experience or do. And if we think of fire energy in the element of the zodiac, these are going to be they're going to be about self, right? They're going to be the bigger personalities, the extroverts, and so on. And each one, so we have Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius that are fire signs. And
Okay.
Aries is the cardinal, Leo is the fixed, Sag is the mutable. But all of them have, I want to experience this life. So
Okay.
Aries starts stuff, they're the trailblazer. Leo is like, I want to sit here and enjoy life and have fun. And Sag is like, I need to see the world and expand my beliefs. But they are all
Wow.
action oriented.
Okay.
And
So
then
it's almost like by the time you've got the elements and there's subcategories of these modes.
very much so.
Okay, got it. Keep
Yes,
going.
that's why when you were teaching your workshop, I was like,
It's like
ah,
you were buzzing.
I have
Yeah.
something to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so water is emotions, right?
Yes.
And creativity goes there as well. And water is our Cancer, our Pisces, and Scorpio. And the Cancer is the cardinal, the Scorpio is the fixed, and the Pisces is the mutable. And so Cancer is I'm going to nurture the world. They're the matriarch, men or women. And Scorpio is like, we're going to go deep into the shadows and they're the psychiatrists. And then we have like Pisces, which is the empath, and they're technically ether, even though we classify them as water.
Okay.
So, and they're all emotions, right? This is the emotionally intelligent feelers of the zodiac. And then we have air. Air is conversations. Mental, actually, mental would be the best word. Their mind is first and foremost, which of course is attached to the mouth. So we have our Gemini, we have Aquarius, and we have Libra. Libra being the cardinal, Aquarius being the fixed, and Gemini being the mutable. So Libra is going to be like, okay, let's focus on others. How do we mediate? How do we bring peace? How do we, work together now? And then we have Aquarius, they're the innovators and the rebels. How do we work for the greater good of humanity, but with the mind? And then we have Gemini, who is the study of each individual at a single moment, and intelligence and the teacher, right? And most people with Gemini in their charts teach. So those are air elements, but with one of all the modes too. And then lastly, we have Earth. And Earth is very kapha. It's just that, which I believe kapha is earth and water, right?
It is, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Taurus is the fixed. And then we have Virgo is the mutable, and then Capricorn is the cardinal. So if you've ever met high Capricorn in a chart, they're going to be successful, whether they're a stay-at-home mom or a CEO. They're always going to be moving forward because they're driven by discipline and goals. And then Taurus is like the grower, the builder. They're, because they're fixed, how do I get my results with the least amount of effort? And so their perseverance, or better yet, steadfastness is a word. And then Virgo, they're mutable. They're the healer. How do I take that information and apply it to the physical, knowing that it can change because information is always changing?
You're blowing my mind right now. Part of me is wondering like, oh my gosh, like should I be getting everyone to give their natal chart to Sandy so that she can give me their details so that Ayurvedically it helps us get to their dosha with even more clarity. Like, do you
This
think
is why.
that, like, do you think that's where we're at? Where it's like, okay, hang on, you're just introducing me to a way that we fast track ourselves to that Ayurvedic dosha that then helps us understand how to bring balance into our own beings. Because that's what Ayurveda wants to do. And yet Ayurveda hasn't given us that same sort of like key to unlock this like answer book, the same way our astrology has given us a key to unlock an answer book. So Ayurveda does a lot of like experiments. We try things. We're trying to embody knowledge. We test things out on ourselves. And in that experimentation, we find our answer key.
Yeah.
You telling me you have got a little secret fast track that could
Well, it's not that clear. It's because
okay.
just like Ayurveda, what you just said, like it's a science, it's a balance. So is astrology, because when you peel back the layers, eventually we see, okay, you've seen the chart before, so all the squiggly lines in the middle, they are the
Yeah.
plot of the life. So yes and no. Yes, it can fast track. The reason I'm so curious for us to work together is because I have a feeling when people are doing their dosha questionnaire and then we look at their natal chart, I curiously want to know what is the likelihood that most of them will align with those modes and elements.
Right.
And so
And
far,
maybe that's where we need to create an experiment
mhm.
where I know the Ayurvedic chart and you know the astrology chart, and we start to understand the relationship between the two.
Wouldn't that be so cool? Like, I mean,
Yes.
regardless of if someone is the exception or not, it doesn't matter because we both still have that thing. But my curiosity is for the most part, most of the people that I made take your dosha quiz, which was my whole family, their charts backed it up.
Uh, So then, like if I start thinking next steps from that, then it's like, okay, we just have got a more accurate blueprint for you because Ayurveda is really about helping you uncover your operating system, uncover your natural blueprint. And astrology then is helping us get more details about that blueprint.
I
And
literally call
all
it
that happens, yeah, all that happens when we have more details is that we understand ourselves better. And when we understand ourselves better, we can bring ourselves into balance with more accuracy and efficiency.
100%. That's 100%. I call it the cosmic blueprint. Like
Yeah.
you came here, and yes, you're going to develop your own life experiences, your own personality, and go through your own ups and downs. But we came here to have a human experience and understand it. And if you can understand that portal you entered through, just like the fine wines, they take on what the soil holds. That's just life. We pull in from the entrance. So it's there and it's
Yeah.
running in the background. And I don't know if this pertains to Ayurveda, but with astrology, what the hard part is, we in the school system, from the moment we're born, there's an average, right? You have to do this, this, and this. And if you're above or below, there's all this pressure. If you're below, you're not good. If you're above, you have to stay good because you don't want to be there. But if we looked at it astrologically, well, I mean, there's going to be signs that will thrive, and there's going to be ones that are going to be bored and are not going to be able to do it. So, because of that, there's some archetypes and some people that have felt from a very young age who I am isn't good enough. And that's where psychological astrology can come in because it says, actually, you're exactly good enough. This is you. And when you work with your own strengths, you heal.
Yeah. Ayurveda would say that too. Like as we come to understand ourselves and stop putting ourselves in comparison with other people and realizing that, they're not one size fits all solutions to our health, that we need to have personalized, um, unique ways of being in relationship to our own bodies and our own health and our own well-being because we're not cookie cutter. And the more
Yeah.
we can do that, it's almost like then we come into this place where that self-acceptance is then where you are living from, which is exactly what you're doing.
And what you're doing, and that's why I was loving this. Like if you told a mutable person that they had to follow a 16-week commitment, they would opt out. They'd be
Yeah.
like, I'm not doing it. No way. Or you have to at 6 a.m. every morning precisely do this. Like that would be torture for them.
Yeah.
Torture. But like
Yeah.
a fixed element or a fixed
The
modality
kapha
would be
person,
much
like in my
easier.
world, the kapha person's going, bring it. I can
Yeah,
do that
I
for
can do that.
48 million weeks if you want me
Same
to.
time every day, sure.
Yeah. And the Vata person's going like poke my eyes out.
Literally.
Yeah, so there's a beautiful corresponding language. And that's Sandy, the more I learn about, and I'm going to call them sister sciences because the way you're talking right now, I'm like, astrology is a sister science. There's something about them that they're individualized, they're proactive, they believe in the power, worthiness, and eternal perfectness of each individual.
Yeah.
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 And there's something about that our external world right now is like, we like it better when we can put everyone into sort of this,
I need to, yeah. This is where you belong.
blowing my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad this intrigues you because it's when I teach astrology courses, this is the first thing I teach because everybody thinks planets or stars. Astrology, tropical astrology, like psychological astrology, is actually seasons and elements.
Yeah, which is exactly what Ayurveda is, seasons and elements. Okay, so I want to know then. So Ayurveda is full of balancing practices. Basically, we start with our doshas, which is our Vata, Pitta, Kapha. You start with your seasons or your modes,
Modes, yeah.
then go to our five elements. And the only other one that Ayurveda has that you don't is we have one called ether. And ether is basically just like space. It's the container that holds the other four.
Yes.
And ether is a piece of vata. It's a piece of that mutable one. It's very easily, you know, it's transient. It's very easily moved and it's changeable, and yet it is the container of it all. So that's the different one. And then Ayurveda moves to they call them the gunas. They are opposite pairs. And here is where Ayurveda starts to be able to balance you, because they would say, okay, the air element has a lot of this mobility, just in the fact that air can move a lot. And the way we talk about Vata people, or you talk about mutable signs, they're the ones that, they're wishy-washy. They might not buy into regular routine all the time. And those people would say, okay, we want to give that person a little bit more balance. So we're going to bring some stability in to help balance the mobility of this person, this sign. And so Ayurveda starts to talk about what can help make this person feel best in themselves. Is
And
that,
so,
yeah,
yeah,
talk
so
about that.
astrology, we call it polarity.
Okay.
So every single element so every single archetype
Yeah.
has a polarity, and the opposite is the medicine.
Op. Yes, that's what Ayurveda said. It basically says the opposite is the medicine. And so if you are hot, cold is your medicine. If you
Yes.
are dry, oil is your medicine. If you are cloudy and sticky, like if you have a big cold and you're snotty and stuff, then clear broth, clear air, whatever is your medicine. Like the
Yes.
opposite is your medicine. And you guys use the word polarities, and the
So we
polarities.
use the word polarity, and it would pertain more. Like I use the elements, but I use it more on an elemental basis. So let's say somebody was going through a really tough time, or let's say they had a heavy fire year. You can put it that way. So I will always go to the polarity. What is the polarity? So archetypically, this is where things change a little bit, because you can make astrology now turn into medical, karmic, psychological, whatever
Oh,
you'd like, by using the elements, and the archetype and the mode together. For example, we're in Aries season right now. So this can be agitating for some people, right? This is where people get their allergies start to come up. The snow mold starts to come up, and Aries brings things up, and Aries is very aggressive. Like seeds need to work so hard to get out of the soil. They can't be thinking of anything else but
yeah.
themselves to get up there, because else it won't happen. And that's very much the Aries energy. So if somebody was feeling a lot of this, the polarity is Libra. Same modality, opposite, but polarity elements. So what do we
So
need?
it's funny because the way you're talking about it, Ayurveda would talk about spring the same way. They're like, yeah, and not only that, but transitions are aggravating. So the transition from this winter season into this new season is aggravating. And I
Yes,
feel like not only are we going through a seasonal shift right now, but whatever's going on in your astrology world, there's some big
a
transitions
lot.
happening. Yeah. So this transition that we are experiencing right now just feels like 1,000 times bigger than the transition of just moving to spring, like it used to feel like
Well, it's the
10 years.
beginning of the astrological year. Aries is the beginning, right? So technically, this is the start of the year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, which
And
to
it is.
me technically makes a little bit more sense, even because I never ever felt January 1st like I could start anything. It's just maybe some goals. I get the goals, but like to the actual energy of doing something never
Makes
felt right.
Yeah. So then okay, give me some, I don't want to use the word prescription, but I want to use the word maybe practices, or the idea of like, does astrology start to give you like a treatment plan? Does it start to give you some ideas of how to use opposites to feel stable, or whatever it is you need to soothe in the body? Because there's always, it's almost like we're trying to soothe something and we're trying to lift something else up so that we can bring things into balance. And life always
Yes.
be like that. So what's going on maybe right now in the world or in astrology or in this seasonal shift? Where are those practices? What are they?
Well, this is the funny part. Astrology is very individual. So what I would do is I'd look at someone's chart and see. So someone who has very heavy water or earth, this can be an aggravating time for them because this energy's not their energy, right? They don't thrive in it. So for them, I would get them Mars medicines, we call them. So nettle, for example. And this is where astroherbalism comes in and a whole bunch of, because every single thing, just like in Ayurveda, is ruled by a planet or by an element or by those things. So I would look up what's going to create, what can help. So if somebody had lots of water, I'd give them nettle or something to create heat, you know, cayenne, stuff like that. Whereas if somebody had a lot of fire, let's say they have a lot of cardinal or they have a lot of fire in their chart, well, this is already going to start to be a fiery kind of
Fire.
energy, right? So then we're going to go to Venus ones because that's the opposite archetype. So I'm going to look for cooling. Venus is always going to be, what's a good Venus herb? Like motherwort or stuff that it helps support the kidneys and it helps support the body in cooling it down, like hibiscus, for example. So those are just off the top of my head.
Well, and that's exactly the way Ayurveda would work, right? They'd be like, okay, so we're going to look at how the season is, and we're going to look at you. So you're
Yes.
looking at that mode and you're looking at the element. And I'm going to be doing the same. I'm going to be overlaying your dosha,
Yes.
uh, and the elements that are existing in our season right now. And sometimes they dovetail together and they actually automatically balance each other out, exactly what
Yeah.
you're saying. And other times it's like, oh, that is what's going on in the season right now. And this doesn't like that. So these two things are going to get aggravated together.
Yes.
And people start to understand that about themselves when they've been working with their own body, and then I make them stay in my course for a full year so they can feel themselves in spring, in summer, in
Responding.
fall, in winter. Yeah, because I want people to understand that the habits that they might have and need in January, they need to shift by the time they get to May. And
Yes.
there's a new set of habits required for you in May because the way nature's elements and your elements and you are interacting requires something different each
So
season.
that what you're saying right there is literally the message that I always try to portray with astrology because people always think, "Oh, we're in Mercury retrograde. What does that mean for me?" It means something for you, but it means something different for you than it does to the person next to you. And I mean, just like spring is going to affect everyone in this side of the world, we're all going to feel spring, but how it pertains to you is going to be different than the person next to you based on what is your balance. So what you just said is exactly a lot of the message that I try to get through to people when they are confused as to what astrology is, because most people think of it as horoscope, right? Or
Yeah.
what's my sign?
There is something for me, and what drew me to Ayurveda was as I understood it, it helped me explain myself. And the more I was able to explain myself, the more self-compassion, self-worth, self-ownership, sovereignty I could feel and experience and live into because Ayurveda gave me language to understand and believe in myself. And I
Yes.
feel like that's what you're talking about as well.
Very much so. And I would even go one step further. For me, like when I got into astrology, it taught me compassion for others as well. Because I realized not everyone's me. Like, I can't tell someone to eat the same diet as me or to, like, or suck it up or whatever. Like what I would normally, what worked for me is not going to work for others. So it taught me compassion and to actually listen and study other people. And that's why I'm so passionate about teaching people about them, because it's just like you said, like when you get to truly understand yourself, not only do you have self-compassion, but you can start to realize, hey, not everyone's me. Like,
Well, and I feel like if there's one thing that our world could use is just a really good dose of that self-compassion for the fact that we are all unique beings and that, um, yeah, that's it. We'll hopefully get into
oh, I'm
specifics.
loving this talk so much.
Yeah. Okay, so in times of change, in times of transition, because we are in one, Ayurveda would call it seasonally right now, the big shift to spring hits us particularly hard where we live um, because it's almost like winter fakes us out about 10 times before it actually gives us spring. And when the rest, like this equinox that's happening this week, it's like the world saying it's spring, and yet our climate saying, well, maybe. So there's some difficult transitions. This is one of our hardest ones that we go through, and yet there seems to be more transition sort of in the stars as well. So tell us what your recommendations start to be around bringing opposites in to balance and heal.
I would say for anyone who has a lot of fire in their chart, or especially if they have a lot of Aries or cardinal signs in their chart, so heavy fire or heavy cardinal mode, they're really not going to need to do anything. The energy is already there. We have so many planets moving into Aries. There's going to be like six, like we're going to be amped up there. For people who have air, they usually do quite well in a fire setting because fire and air are yang. They do well. The only thing they might want to be careful of is biting off more than they can chew, because there
Okay.
does need to be a balance. If they're water and earth signs or kapha heavy people, even Vata to some degree. So Kapha, what I would tell them, this is the time to do what you would call spring cleanse by getting into sweats, getting into something where you can let things out. Heated arguments, silly stuff like that, like getting passion stirring is going to help. Heating foods, like I always got a cayenne for kapha, I don't know why, but ginger, onion, stuff like that. Anything that gets the actual literal fires moving is going to help. Or sitting by a fire, light candles in the house. If they can pull that fire energy in, it can help them transition, because it can feel, even though we still have winter and it is hard, the energy is still there. Like the shifts are still there. So anyone there, I would say that. And then the earth people, this is a time to, how would I work with earth? I would work the same with earth and water. Get into the heat, get into the stirring the passions, get into those things.
Yeah.
Um, basically, embrace the heat.
Yeah.
And if
It's
anything,
really,
sorry to interrupt, or sorry, and the
oh, you
hot, the
keep
hot
going.
fire people, if there is tons in your chart, then I would say get into the cooling thing, because you're already going to be starting to getting amped up.
Yeah. It it's almost identical. Like what you're saying, because I would say the same thing. Like, if you are one of my kapha people and you're coming into spring, like if you're not careful, you're the one who's going to get all snotty and you're going to get all of the like colds and all that kind of stuff. So it's the time to sweat. It's the time to move. It's the time to like ignite some of that fire and get it going so that you don't get weighted down by the season. And the people who will be loving this the most in Ayurveda would be that Vata sign, who are just coming out of winter, and they're just going to feel so supported by the way we're coming into spring. And
Yeah.
the fire sign, like you said, will also feel quite supported, but we just need to, as we're going to go into summer season, we need to make sure they don't start to
I'm gonna
amp
rev
up.
them up. So
Yeah.
it's
So
very similar.
isn't that funny? Yeah, it's very similar. So we're using a different modality and slightly different language.
And I think there's a difference. Like Ayurveda is really about healing, whereas astrology is a language that can be used for that. But I mean, it's the language can be used for many different things as well.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
would say there's so many similarities, but if you wanted to learn both, and this is why I think our things are going to be like ginormous, is you can support on both levels.
Yeah. Well, Ayurveda, when you break down the word, it breaks down into Aryu, which means life, and Veda, which means science. It means study. It means wisdom. And so it's like the
Wow.
study of life, the science of longevity. Those sorts of words are used to describe the Ayurveda. But it's very true in that it is there as a language to help you understand you and bring yourself always into that optimal place where you have well-being for your best longevity, for your longevity,
The
which
science,
is
yeah.
which isn't just how old you get, it's how well you get old.
I love that because that is the truth.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, whereas astrology, it's interesting. It's been around since 6000 BC. They have been using it. And there's multiple different charts. We have whole chart systems, we have sidereal, we have tropical, and I read them all. But the tropical astrology is the one we use here the most in the West, and it has most to do with us as who we are. Whereas sidereal is more it's more pertaining to the fixed stars and what's actually happening. Because if you look at the actual constellations right now, the sun isn't in Aries. Like that's not actually what's happening. We're going off of a seasonal, based on the equinoxes and solstice. The solar cycles is what we study,
Yeah.
which is
I
life
do
force.
I do think that this is interesting because when I go back to thinking about yin and yang, and I always think that all these structures help us have flow. And so if we want to be able to flow through something, we need to have the safety of the structure to hold us. So Ayurveda gives us structure, language, rules, guidance systems, and astrology is doing that too. And you're saying there's sort of different modes into that. I mean, I've heard of Vedic astrology that must fit into.
That's more sidereal. So Vedic
Oh,
astrology is more about the fixed stars, and
mhm.
they don't look at our sun sign, they look at our moon sign, which is technically, to me, if you're going to look at a personality, it's almost more accurate because we identify with our sun sign, but ego is very huge here in North America. But the moon sign is our inward self, our emotions, and that never changes. So in Eastern astrology, when I was in India, they all look at their moon signs as their sign,
Well, in
and
the
they're
word
both right.
Veda, the fact that that word is consistent, Vedic astrology or Ayurveda, that word is consistent in both, which leads me to believe that, the people who are in creation of these were using a similar language in the beginning.
Yes. Oh God, yes.
I just get
Yes.
sort of little shivers when I think about this.
And the Vedic teachings, to my knowledge, are the most ancient teachings in the world. And it's a really funny because the little bit that I've even dabbled in them, every single motivational speaker, psychologist, scientist, everyone, they find a way of wording something, but it's already there. It's just been, forgotten, I guess, or I think there was so much wisdom back then.
Yeah, I find that all the time is that when I hear someone who's got the latest, greatest bestseller and I start reading it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is yoga or this is
I know.
Ayurveda. Like I just
I did
like,
that at an Eckhart
oh,
Tolle thing. I'm like, this
using
is
all these big
yoga.
words. Yeah, this is just yoga. Yeah, this is just Ayurveda. Absolutely. I come back to that all the time. Man, Sandy. Okay, I just want to I want to tell people what you and I are plotting.
Yes, let's tell them.
So Sandy and I are going to host an event coming up in the next couple of months where we would like you to invite you to join us to understand both your dosha chart in Ayurveda and your natal chart in astrology. And we are going to dovetail these two together because we're curious how they fit together. And we want to know if you want to play in our experiment with us.
Yes, I love that. I love that. It's an experiment, and it'll be so much fun because it's self-discovery in two different ways. But
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be so incredible.
And it's just, I think everything nowadays we go into it with this curiosity and this collaboration for me, I just want to get my little fingers in it, and that would be the fire in me that wants to come in, even though I'm pretty air as well. But those two things really want to just understand this more and put these puzzle pieces together so it's like we can see how the astrology puzzle works and then we can understand the overlay of whichever one it is, Ayurveda overlay in astrology, or astrology
Yes.
in Ayurveda, but we think that there is this beautiful connection here and we want to play in it more.
Yes. And everyone who comes will leave knowing their doshas and leave knowing their predominant or their dominant modes and elements in astrology. So that knowledge will help you for the rest of your life. Just that alone.
And then just like that idea to be able to start using really practical application of opposites to help you understand when you don't feel like you're in balance.
Yes.
What those real time um, practical applications are to help you feel good in your own body that you were designed with. I know.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else you need to add to that besides the fact that watch our social medias, watch our websites to learn more in the coming weeks?
Yes. No, I can't think of anything else. I think we've like rounded out the best.
Uh,
The best.
yeah. Anyway, I haven't been this excited about something for a long time, so I'm really, really curious. Thank you, Sandy. And I will say I've had your Mars tea, so I know at some point you were talking about something and I was like, oh, I need some of that. Yeah.
I'm still making teas.
Excellent. Yeah. All right. Okay, so thank you and watch Solar Power Health and watch Sister Science for what Sandy and I are creating and let us know. We only probably have 12 spots, so um, get in quick if you get on our wait list if you'd like to get the invite before other people. Excellent, Sandy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.